Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeff Fischel, Senior Vice President of Marketing at PRGX. Today's session is Accelerate Cash Recovery and Error Prevention in Retail with AI, without piling work on your team, of course. All right, so how many of you still chase claim or rebate details in long email threads? Keep that in mind as we dive in. I'm joined by Brad Royer, Senior Vice President, Global Retail Operations here at PRGX. Brad has spent decades serving the world's largest retailers, recovering millions and driving substantial savings with smarter processes and data. Brad, all right, let's kick it off this way. Where do teams lose the most time getting dollars back? Is it gathering claim evidence from email, aligning to contract terms, or waiting on supplier responses?
Thanks, Jeff. You just mentioned decades. That makes me feel very old, so thank you for that. But yeah, been at this 30 years. But to answer your question, it's all three, honestly. If we go to, the legacy recovery audit timelines and best practices, with how fast everything changes these days, it's really not best practice anymore. So you can see there the typical post-audit transaction landscape. So contracts are negotiated, performance starts, pricing is set, the performance ends or payments are made, and then it goes to the internal processes. Some of our clients have internal reviews, some don't. Accounting obviously has to do their function and role and reconciliations. And then typically it's turned over to a post-audit firm and in some cases, there's even two post-audit firms that do a first and a secondary review. And that typically, runs from 6 to 24 months after the transaction. So, with the way things move these days and technology is changing, any kind of feedback or actionable insights 24 months later doesn't really do anybody any good. And then also it causes a lot of vendor abrasion, with the suppliers and your merchants, because they're having to deal with issues that are probably weren't at the desk at the time these things happen. So it really is not a best practice anymore to take this long to be able to identify errors and to address error remediation. So what we're going to talk about today is, kind of way the landscape is changing and talking about anything from acceleration to preventive, which is really exciting to me. So I'm excited to have this discussion.
Yeah, Brad, thanks. So let's put ourselves in the position of the audience now for a second. For those of you watching, what is your biggest hurdle related to post-transaction reviews? So we have a few listed there. Stale data that delays or reduces recoveries, missing promotional funding within the fiscal year, email-based evidence gathering, cash stuck in inboxes, vendor abrasion in managing current promotional funding, limited time to engage suppliers for resolution. So if you're watching, you're more than welcome to add a comment or a thought here in the chat. We'll keep an eye out. Brad, from what you've seen, would you agree these are some of the most common situations we hear about from our clients and partners? And it's not just one, right?
Yeah, it could be a multiple of these, and it depends on the client, right? What their particular pain points are. But yeah, just the staleness of the data. You can't really do any actions on the feedback. But the biggest thing probably is the vendor abrasion and the downstream costs associated with resolving disputed deductions. There's a tremendous amount of cost borne by both sides of our clients and the suppliers in this process. So any way we can address that and eliminate that, and one of the ways is to get more current, right? So that's what we'll be talking about today.
All right, Brad, thanks. With those challenges in mind, perhaps you can show us how PRGX is using technology, AI, to find hidden cash faster, including in email.
Sure. So everybody's talking about AI these days and everybody's using it, but it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But, in a combination with using AI, data acquisition, data processing, and also adding an AI layer over top of that, we have been able to significantly get closer to the transaction, turnaround identification of errors much more quickly, and deliver profit back to our clients in a much more current fashion, even in their current fiscal year. And we mentioned it before, it's like, getting those funds into the cost of goods is critically important to our clients. So one of the things we've done, particularly with emails, and I'll just caveat that by saying probably 50–60% of our clients use emails as part of their negotiations. The others do not. But in particular with emails, we're receiving millions and millions of emails every month, day, year. And there's no possible way that our teams can actually physically go through and read all those. So in the past, we've used, word searches and queries to help narrow that pipeline down. But now we've been able to leverage AI over the top of that to do several things. One of them is if you have a million emails to go through, trying to identify which ones are relevant. So by teaching our AI model to identify what emails are probable that we need to look at, significantly reduces the amount of effort and time to be able to take that to the next level, which is automated concept classification. That's a fancy word to say, okay, is this an issue with your scan? Or is it an issue with pricing? Is it an issue with movement? Is it a lump sum or advertising issue? And that helps us on our side to be able to route those to our SMEs that are highly capable and qualified to review those particular concepts. And so that also increases the turnaround time. And then probably one of the biggest things is the automated information extract. So you can take, and there's attachments, there's Excel spreadsheets, there's PDFs, and our AI is able to extract those, strip off the relevant metadata and put those into databases that we can then marry up with our data that we get for, whether it's AP or promotions or POS. Again, that also significantly increases our turnaround time. And then finally, automating the supplier communication, like getting their, packaging all that information up, sending those to suppliers to get them to be able to validate, with all the relevant information, makes it easy for them to either agree with it or provide additional information that maybe we didn't have at the time. So all those things have really, we've been able to leverage to really increase the timing of how close we can get to the transaction.
Thanks, Brad. Can you walk us through then how those steps translate into fewer misses and faster approvals day to day?
Sure. So like I said, the automatic supplier communication, if we can turn around and identify not only what's relevant, what the issue is, tie in any other relevant documentation that the supplier needs to be able to approve those, and then automatically reaching out to our suppliers to get their validation or feedback. So there's a couple ways that email audits are performed. So you have an email audit where you're actually mining the emails to identify opportunities. And then the second thing is using our existing data, whether it's payment information, deduction information, POS data, marrying those up and identifying anomalies in the data that we've identified through our algorithms, and then having that information and the AI agents go out and identify those emails automatically is a tremendous time saving, and it improves our accuracy. It improves the scope of what we're able to look at. So it just increases efficiencies all around. Next slide. So obviously the overall benefits, evolution of AI-driven audits, process improvement. We had mentioned the timeliness of the feedback that we're able to provide in defect remediation. So, clients have, it could be a communication breakdown, it could be a system defect, but if the closer we are to the transaction, the more actionable those insights and feedback is. And we have several examples where we've identified issues and we've been able to provide that feedback. And because it's so current, that our clients are able to take action and eliminate that error going forward, which is really the ultimate goal is to not have the error at all. But secondly, if we can identify the error quickly and provide the feedback and get the fix in, that also is very, very helpful. So, and then the vendor experience, I talked about that. It's, typically, a supplier will get a deduction or a claim for, a year and a half ago, and nobody's around anymore that was involved in that transaction or negotiations. And it just creates a lot of headache and cost, like I said, for both sides, significant downstream cost to try to deal with that. And many times if it's not occurring in the fiscal year, we're dealing with a different, probably an AR group at the suppliers who are even more removed from the transaction and availability, and they're reaching out to the merchants, and the merchants are like, I wasn't even around then. What does that mean? I have no information to help out. So it does create a lot of abrasion, which this addresses, because many times we're able to identify those within the given fiscal year. Suppliers are able to manage those within their performance funding budgets for that year, which is critical for them, and also helps the merchants because they've been around and they were probably involved and remember what the intent of the negotiations were. So, and then obviously cash flow optimization. Our clients are getting their money more current and more quickly. So yeah, how do we provide that feedback? So reporting and defect remediation. So we have a platform that provides real-time information on all of our claims and the root cause. So any of the stakeholders from our client side can go in and review this. It's not something that we have to send over in a PowerPoint every week, or and in some cases even share some information with suppliers. So it's been very helpful in really giving visibility into the whole process. Where are the errors occurring? Which vendors have the highest rate of errors? Which promotional funding vehicles obviously are contributing to the errors. So it really does give our clients it arms them with some good information to be able to go back internally and identify, okay, what can we do on our side to eliminate these errors? Next slide.
Brad, I'll jump in here. Let's check in with our audience again as well. What's your top priority for AI and recoveries to improve cash flow and margins this year? Is it A, reduce errors up front to optimize cash flow? B, accelerate cash back? C, improve supplier experience? Or D, consolidate data and reporting? These are all important because when you get to the heart of it, you are improving margins, reducing risk, and delivering insights that can really drive the business forward. Right, Brad?
That's right. And again, it's probably a combination of these things, right? Obviously, the true goal is to not have errors at all. But if you do have them, be able to identify them quickly and remediate them as quickly as possible, accelerate your cash flow, improve the vendor experience, which I've talked about, and then the reporting that goes along with that. Next slide. So we have a couple case studies that we'll share on acceleration that kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about and some of the benefits and what the problems were. So we have a large retailer that had the legacy type timeline. All the recovery audit operations were done within the 24 months. But getting a lot of negative feedback from suppliers with age deductions, getting frustration from merchants, and that the vendors are telling me that they're going to take this from my current funds. And then the root causes by that time, all kinds of things have changed, and there was really no current information to be able to go and remediate any root cause. And the negotiators often were no longer around, so it made it even more difficult and frustrating to get resolution on the deductions. So one of the things that we did was outsource. They had an internal review that they outsourced to us. So what that did is allowed us to move up within 35 days of the transaction end, and then the accounting functions were completed by then. It did take some change management with the internal teams on the accounting and reconciliation efforts to say that you've got to get through your reconciliations and payments within a certain period of time, and then we pick it up. And so what we've been able to do is do a rolling review and have all the first and second pass audit results completed by 9 months after the end of the fiscal year. But it did allow us to, move about 75%, 80% of the recoveries into the current fiscal year, which was very much appreciated. We got feedback from suppliers saying, although they don't like the deductions, they're thrilled that it's more current. The people are still around on their side. The merchants are still around. That we can, at least come to some resolution much more quickly and more easily. So again, reduce the vendor abrasion, allow them to manage their promotional funding. It provided real-time feedback on issues. And one example, I think I might talk about it in a minute, but we hear from clients, well, we're going through a conversion of systems. It's not a good time to do this, but actually it's really the best time, because if we can get close to the transaction, we were able to provide feedback on some of the conversion issues or migration issues that otherwise would have gone perhaps unnoticed for over a year. And so we were able to provide that feedback. They were able to make that transition or change within their migration for their ERP system. And so that's just one example. But again, accelerating, getting as close as you can provides so many benefits versus the traditional legacy timelines. And then I think we have another case study, very similar. Next slide. Same thing, 24 months. Most of the recoveries were coming in 18 to 24 months after the transaction. Stale root causes again. Negotiators were gone. And so one of the solutions, again, outsourced internal review. This particular client, we started 120 days after post-transaction. And same results, reduced vendor abrasion, real-time upstream feedback, reduce the vendor abrasion, and we were collecting or delivering back to them, 90% of the profit within the current fiscal year. So it was a huge benefit to them as well. Next slide. So this is just kind of a visual of going from a legacy to an accelerated audit. Typically, how we get there is, in the past, you'd get a complete fiscal year at once, and then you take a year to audit it. But in order to accelerate and get that done more quickly, we've actually tried to break it up into smaller chunks, whether it's quarter or even period or 6 months in some cases. So starting a rolling audit just continues within those timeframes. And so what that does is accelerate all those things that we had talked about, whether it's feedback or cash. And then even distribution of cash flow, right? So if it's a rolling type review, cash flow is fairly steady and it's easier to budget for and anticipate and plan for, which helps the finance teams. And then you do, realize a one-time bump in recoveries because typically you have to have some sort of an overlap period. So you've got two different auditing functions happening at the same time. Next slide.
Yeah, Brad, many want to prevent errors, not just recover them. Let's talk about what is actually a preventive audit. And can you go over some of the key benefits?
Sure. So this is really, I'm really excited about this because, what we do in a recovery audit business is, it's like insurance, right? You don't want to have it, but you need it. So, we're really not addressing the real pain point, and that is, why are these errors continuing to happen, and what can we do to stop them? That is really the value that we could provide, and that's really the pain point that our clients are seeking. And so, by moving to a preventive audit, and I'll share a couple examples of where we've done that, is basically take our recovery audit function, process, technology, expertise, and move that to pre-transaction timelines. Now, to say that we can't boil the ocean that way, but there are certain targeted claim types or pricing things that we can do in an accelerated fashion. And typically, if you're, especially like a grocery retailer where you have consistent 2-week, 1-week promotions that are just constant, we're able to move probably 60% of the recoveries to a preventive model. And what that looks like is that we're able to identify discrepancies or anomalies before the transaction occurs and before the performance starts, or sometime during the performance. Give that feedback to the stakeholders, whether it's the suppliers and or the merchants, and allows them to make corrective actions to the contracts. And so particularly, if you have a contract that, let's say it's yogurt, and you had a contract set up to promote yogurt, and in the meantime, there was a new item presented, and it didn't get on the contract. We see that quite a bit. In a preventive manner, we're able to identify those and give the feedback to get that specific flavor added. Some of the other ones are, if the performance changes, particularly in the last minute, either the merchant or the supplier needs to move it a week up or a week back. Sometimes those contracts don't get updated, and so the contracts are billed on non-performance production. And then rebates, if a rebate is set up with the wrong rate, we're able to identify what the rate should be and recover retrospective transactions or payments, and then correct it to fix going forward. And then, making sure that the price points negotiated with the allowances actually get our clients to the margin and the price points that they thought they were supposed to get. So it could be that, the allowance we've seen instances where an allowance was entered as a per unit allowance, but it really should have been per case, or vice versa. So we're able to identify those and get those fixed as well. And then, talk about actionable insights. If we do identify any kind of systemic errors with the process or systems, we're able to provide that feedback immediately, and it eliminates errors going forward. And then one of the biggest benefits of that is there are no errors, so there are no disputes, and so there is no cost to reconcile old deductions, and everybody wins in that scenario, suppliers and clients. Next slide. So this is kind of a visual again to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. So performance, even before the performance starts, there's the negotiations, right? And once the contract is set, then we start doing our continuous monitoring of the contracts against the intended performance, and identifying the anomalies, providing that feedback, getting those fixed. But it's not a one and done deal. It's a continuous process because things change up to the last minute. So we keep monitoring that until it's too late. Sometimes 3 days before the performance starts, it's kind of a cutoff. But then we can go into a real-time review. So if we were able to identify something that wasn't able to get fixed, we can at least identify it and get it fixed going forward, in terms of making sure the payments are accurate. And then, of course, like I said, you can't boil the ocean with this. So there are certain categories or claim types that don't lend themselves to an accelerated model. So those are captured in our normal process, essentially, after the transaction. But it certainly accelerates the entire process, the feedback loops, the cash gets much more current. And the other big benefit is, particularly for clients and our merchants, is that those errors are prevented before they happen. So all that gets into the true cost of goods for your items. So you have accurate margins, whereas if it's captured after the fact, it usually doesn't get into the cost of goods. It goes into another line item. So that is another real big benefit to this process. The next slide. So we do have a case study in Waitrose in the UK. Same issues, deal intentions weren't clear, or there were discrepancies. Suppliers resisted recovery audit deductions, obviously, and post-transaction reviews caused significant delays in cash. So what we did was we implemented a monitoring process and shifted from recovery corrections prior to. But again, we're not boiling the ocean here. It's very targeted. And then we were able to provide real-time insights to the teams. So we did see a 15% increase in projected recoveries. So by getting in, it doesn't make sense, but getting in front of the transaction or the payment, we were able to identify even more errors than we had been finding in a recovery audit traditional view. And 40 to 50% of the recoveries are actually moved upstream prior to the payment. So those deductions or recoveries were eliminated. And then in the UK, there's GSCOP, which is a requirement for grocery companies. It puts certain requirements around timelines and requirements of suppliers to approve claims. And we actually have Jeff, you want to share what the client said about that? Next slide.
Yep, absolutely. It was great to hear from Waitrose. Keith Rosser from John Lewis Partnership has been enthusiastic about the partnership and the preventive audit. Here's what he told us, quote, previously, certain types of profit leakage were almost impossible to recover retrospectively due to contractual limitations, supplier resistance, or a lack of compelling insight. Now, Waitrose has successfully deployed the new preventive capability, namely real-time visibility and analysis on upcoming deals, enabling teams to detect, question, and prevent potential margin erosion before it occurs. So great feedback from an important partner of ours. Great to hear from Keith and how he sees the preventive audit going for Waitrose.
Yeah, it really has been a good success story, not only for them, but for us as well. So as we get more into this, it's good to have these success stories. And I'll share one more, a little bit different. So we had a client that we had been auditing, the reclamation or unsaleable returns for a number of years, and we were finding significant amounts of recoveries around that process. And it all stemmed from probably systemic issues within the systems, not only on the client side, but also their third-party provider, and being able to accurately, bill the correct costs, handling charges, and the negotiated contracts, whether it was billable or not billable. So we provided feedback of what the root causes were, but either it wasn't a priority or just didn't have the resources to do it, but they kept occurring. They made some difference in it. But then they came to us and said, listen, we are not able to get where we need to be. Can you help us? So we proposed that let's just take over the entire process. So we get all the item returns every period. We run those against the contracts. We update the correct pricing and the correct handling charges per those contracts. And we actually create a deduction file for the client, feed that into their system, and automatically invoice or deduct from the suppliers. And what has happened is that those errors post-transaction were reduced by 99%. The suppliers were able to, when they got the invoice, it was accurate. So it eliminated all the downstream back and forth with dispute resolution. And it's something that we've been doing, I think, for 10 years now or more. And it also helped them renegotiate a different third-party supplier for their reclamation third-party also. So a big success story, something that we're continuing to do. And, wherever we can, look at these processes and identify areas of opportunity. It just makes so much sense to see what we can do about moving our expertise of what we've learned and developed in the recovery audit process pre-transaction. So we're very excited about it and looking forward to doing this with more of our clients. It's a win-win for not just us and our clients, but also for the suppliers. So,
yeah. Brad, it's a great point that we're combining that expertise with this technology to really deliver more value to our partners. And I will say Brad's team works with more than 70% of the world's largest retailers. PRGX is truly the global leader in this space. Boots on the ground in 30 countries to improve performance and build stronger relationships with our partners and suppliers. Overall, PRGX processes over 7 petabytes of data, each year. I've been doing some math on that. It's an incredible amount of data that we help process working with our clients. We're talking the equivalent of like NASA sending a mission to Mars. We're talking about more data processed each year than Twitter, that's X, each year. It's a massive amount of data that we're able to not only ingest, but then deliver insights back to our partners. And all that adds up to over $2 trillion in spend each year. So with that, let's go to Q&A. Our audience has been providing questions. I want to get to a few, and I will say, keep submitting them. We may not get to all of them, but we are committed to following up with you one-on-one with answers. Get to your question here. So the first one we have, what lessons have you seen, Brad, from companies transitioning to an accelerated and preventive audit process?
Well, I think one of the things that is a requirement is establishing internal timelines and with some change management. So making sure that the amount of time needed from our clients, internal accounting, our finance teams, they have the time they need to process the deductions, do the reconciliations, whatever their normal process is. But then establishing a deadline for that. And then once that happens, then our efforts kick in and we're able to begin our process and accelerate the timelines. The other thing that is sometimes required, depending on what the current cadence of data delivery is typically if we're going to an accelerated timeline, we need at least monthly data deliveries, or in many cases weekly, and in some cases a lot of our clients are giving it at like POS daily. And it's all automated, right? So once the process and projects are set up, working with our data services team, it just happens. And so we're able to ingest that data and turn it around and provide the insights, Jeff, that you had mentioned. And then cross-team collaborations, making sure that merchandising, finance, our audit teams are engaged in providing feedback, reporting, all of that. So, but once those are done, the process runs very smooth, and we do see a lot less headaches from suppliers and internally as well. So it really has been a big win.
Yeah, I will say, just from the marketing side, I get occasional emails forwarded to me from the operations team to think about, to give insight into the supplier relationships. And I do see the operations team getting acknowledgement from suppliers that we're working with them well and that we're building that relationship for our clients. Next question, Brad. What are the unforeseen benefits of accelerated auditing for retailers and transformation?
One of the things we found, and I think I may have alluded to it a bit, but if you're going through a system conversion, whether it's ERP or it could be inventory systems, whatever that might be, it's hypercritical that you get feedback, and you can't anticipate and correct everything during those migrations. But even 1% issue can be a big deal in terms of financial impact. So in one case, we did identify an issue with one of their new systems that wasn't calculating something correctly. So I think within a couple months, they were able to address that issue and correct it going forward. And it also helped the system owners too, as they rolled out to other retailers, they were able to correct that too. So we were proud to be part of that error identification and remediation efforts for that. So that's just one unexpected benefit that we have seen.
Thanks, Brad. All right, so this is the last question I'll get to right now, and it's a question I've heard as we've talked about preventive audit. It's about how we call it preventive. Is preventive auditing still post-audit, just faster?
Yes and no. So so I mentioned before, we take our post-audit process, expertise, technology, and we just move it pre-transaction. So we're doing the same things, same data, but instead of issuing a claim and pursuing payment from the suppliers, the error gets corrected and everybody continues on with their daily lives. So it's the same, but the outcome is different, obviously. And again, like I mentioned before, we're really identifying the real true pain point right? Why are these errors occurring and what can we do to stop them?
Yeah. Great point, Brad. Thanks. And that will be our last question right now. Brad, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If we did not get your question here, we will email you a response. You're also more than welcome to reach out via LinkedIn. And of course, I will make sure Brad and our PRGX audit leaders come back to you with an answer. If for any reason you'd like to go back and watch the full replay, we will make the recording available shortly. As you saw today, our combination of purpose-built technology and industry-leading expertise helps us deliver more value to the world's largest retailers. We encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn. Visit us on PRGX.com, where you can sign up to receive a demo and speak with an expert about our solutions. Brad, I want to say before we go, thank you so much for your time and insights. And
thank you.
And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for spending some time with Brad, myself, and PRGX.